Morning folks, and welcome back to the MCM Outdoor Show. I've come out to make an instructional video for complete beginners to show you how I go hammock camping, how to set up a hammock and how to set up a simple tarp and a ridgeline. The video's very much got beginners in mind, total newbies to hammock camping. I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how complicated and complex your setup needs to be, but hammock camping is a really good way to come and enjoy the great outdoors because you're not constrained by the terrain and the environment. If you've got a rocky floor, a wet floor, uneven ground, and you know, somewhere where ordinarily you wouldn't be able to pitch a tent, well, you don't have that problem when you've got a hammock because you just use trees or other things to get it set up, and you know, you can pretty much camp anywhere within reason. So I've come out today to make a bit of an instructional how-to video just to show how I set up my hammock, a really simple way. Like I say, there's loads of different methods out there and you can make it as complicated as you like, but I personally don't see that it has to be like that, and I'm just showing you what works for me. If you take something from it, well, that's great. So I would advise you to go hammock camping, watch this video, see if you get something from it, and let me know in the comments below. Have you been hammock camping? Is it something you're thinking about? What do you think about my setup? Is there anything I can improve? So please do let me know in the comments. The weather, as you can see, is absolutely atrocious. Typical British winter. It's mild and it's absolutely soaking wet. I've got my new camera out and it looks like it's like a drowned rat. I've got the dead cat on the mic and it looks horrendous, like rolling rats jumped in the Atlantic Ocean. It's absolutely horrendous. So I'm hoping some of this rain goes off because I want to show you the knots, etc., which I'm using. But we just have to see what happens, and if not, we'll just make the most out of some crap weather. So stick with it, and hopefully you're going to enjoy this one. Okay folks, so when you get to your location, the first thing that you may well want is to set up a tarp which is going to go over your hammock. That obviously in weather like this, it's going to keep you dry, shelter you from the winds, shelter from the sun in the middle of summer, although yeah, we don't have that problem today, but predominantly to keep you dry and sheltered. So in order to set up my tarp, I use a simple ridgeline. I got this one from a company called Henge Hammocks, which make loads of hardware for all things hammocks and ridge lines and things like that. So it's a really simple continuous ridge line, but don't get too hung up over that. I'm really going to simplify it. So for the purists amongst you, you might not like it, but it is simply a piece of string or other material which is going to support your tarp. It's nothing more complicated than that. You can use anything. You don't have to spend money on a continuous ridge line, although it was very reasonable. Just use anything you can, bit of string, whatever you want to do. Don't get too hung up about the knots. Just string it between 2 points, A to B. I'll show you what I mean now. So all I've done, it's a continuous line, just goes round the tree with a carabiner, clips on one end. We follow it all the way round, past it around the tree again, and we clip the carabiner back on itself, back onto the line there. Try and get that to focus for you. So there you go, it's that simple. I'm going to attach one end of my tarp to that point, and then I'm going to come back along here, and when I've got my tarp hanging over, I'm going to pull this along and attach that to the other end of the tarp. I hope that makes sense. I'll show you it again in a little bit more detail when I've got the tarp over, and that's going to keep me dry, and that's going to keep the camera nice and dry as well. So I've got the tarp on now. However you want to put your ridge line across the trees, whether you want to just tie a basic bow knot, whatever you want to do, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's nice and tight, it's going to support your tarp. And what I mean by that is, once your ridge line's up from A to B, literally just get your tarp and chuck it over. I've put mine lengthways, but you can do it diagonally. It's just personal preference. There's no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. It doesn't really matter. Put your tarp on there. Your tarp has clipped to this carabiner, just there, and I've pulled it nice and tight all the way across to the other side, where I've done exactly the same thing. So I hope that is nice and simple. I think it is. Like I say, you don't have to use a proper ridge line. I just like it because I can use the carabiners to tension it to get it really tight. And what I mean by that is, on this particular one from Henge Hammocks, I can slide this prusik knot and just pull that really tight, or conversely I can loosen it off just for when I want to take it down. But there you go, that's the tarp set up between both trees, and all I'm going to do now is take some line from this corner, the other corner, and do the same on both other corners, down, so we get a nice V formation, and it's going to give us lots of room under that tarp. A nice dry sterile area where we can put our things, and of course we're going to hang the hammock underneath that. Now don't forget, if it's not raining, you don't need a ridge line, you don't have to have a tarp, you can just sleep looking up at the stars. But if there's bad weather forecast, it might be something you want to do, and a lot of people just like it because it gives them that sort of feeling of security, just having a bit of a tarp over the top of them when they're going to sleep. But you can go open air if you want. So if you're someone who doesn't think you're going to use a tarp or a ridge line over the top of your hammock, we'll just skip this bit and we'll go straight to the hammock setup. But that's pretty much the tarp done. I'm just going to guy out each corner and then I'll show you again. The completed tarp setup, really simple. I've just took a guy line from each corner, pulled it out just to tension it to my liking. The longer you have the guy lines, the flatter the angle is going to be. If you want to make the angle, the sides of your tarp steeper, just shorten your guy lines, and that will decrease this angle and make it a little bit more vertical on the sides. This is a small tarp from DB Tarps. Any make, any model, get whatever you want. Just a piece of material which sits on the ridge line and shelters you from the elements. You might want to choose a larger one, a 3 by 3 meter one. You might want to choose a square one. It doesn't really matter, as long as you think you've got enough room under there, and as long as it's going to cover your hammock in case it rains and keep you nice and dry. It's entirely up to you. And don't forget, like I said earlier, you don't have to have that. You don't even have to bother with that step. You can just go straight to the hammock setup, which is what I'm going to show you now. So I've just got a generic one here. I've got a couple of hammocks, to be fair. There's lots of different brands. You can pay a lot of money for them. You can get them really cheaply on eBay. In practice, I've found it doesn't really matter. This is just a really cheap one which my sister had on a whale challenge that she did many years ago, and she kindly gave that to me after she'd finished. So obviously you're going to need your hammock. That's the first item that you're going to require. The next thing you're going to need are items called tree huggers. You can set up your hammock without these, but I do use them. I'll show you what they are and how to use them now. So as you can see, we're nicely sheltered from the rain now under here, although sod's law, I've got this up and it's starting to go off, but that is just my life at the moment. Anyway, we've got this. It's a tree hugger, and very simply, it is an item which hugs a tree. It's a piece of material basically, and you wrap it around the tree. It's got fabric loops at either end, which are closed loops. You pass one end of the fabric through the loop and then pull it tight, and this is what we're going to use to attach our hammock to the trunk of the tree. It doesn't damage the tree at all, doesn't cause any problems with the bark, and you're only going to be hammock camping ordinarily for a night or a couple of nights at most, so it's not putting any undue stress or pressure or obviously damaging the environment, which is really important, following the principles of leave no trace. I'm going to show you how I'm going to attach this to, first of all, that tree and that one there. It's really simple, don't get bogged down by technical terms. It's called a tree hugger. It's a piece of material which hugs the tree, and it's going to stay up by the power of friction, even more so when you've got your body weight on it. So I find in practice, because these are quite long and there's all various different lengths, I like to start off a bit higher, and then we're going to make a special kind of loop a bit lower down. So I can't do it one-handed and I haven't got a tripod high enough, but literally if you look at the end of this, it has a loop, a closed fabric loop in one end, and we're just going to thread round the tree and thread the opposite end through here. I'll do it and then I'll show you. So like I said, you get one end, pass it around the tree, you've got your loop here, put the other bit of material through, pull it through, pull that a little bit tight, and it just hangs loose like that. Really simple, nothing complicated about that. So that's what I've done there. Through the loop, passed it round the tree, through the loop, and it just hangs down. All we're going to do is repeat that over on the other tree. Exactly the same. Passed it round, give it a bit of a pull, and it's hanging right down there, loose from the tree. So that's the tree huggers done. The next thing we need to do is to put a little toggle on them. Now I've used some old tent poles which have cut down into small lengths. Just have to be short, there's no exact length to it. You can even use twigs or a bit of a solid branch, and we're going to put them through with something called a marlin spike hitch. Don't get too carried away with that. It's just making a loop in the fabric, putting the toggle through the eye of the loop and then pulling it tight so it forms a small knot. We're going to do that on either, on each end, on each tree hugger. I'm going to do it and show you in a little bit more detail. So I've just cut two toggles. You can buy these, you can use little bits of metal rod, they don't have to be hollow, just something sturdy which isn't going to bend or snap. If you're going to use a twig, don't use something like that which is just crumbling away. You want some hardwood, something solid which is not going to snap. And then all I'm going to do, one at each end, is make a loop in this fabric and pass the toggle through the loop and just pull it down so it forms a bit of a knot. It's really simple. It's called a marlin spike hitch. I'm going to leave a graphic overlay on the video just to show you how you do it. If I had someone filming with me, I could do it in slow time, but it's just literally forming a loop, the fabric back on itself, put the toggle through there and pull it down so it forms a knot. And I'll do that now. The marlin spike hitch, you take your material, make a loop, fold it up on itself, make your loop, fold it up on itself, pull the fabric through the eye of that loop, put your toggle through and pull it down. It really is that simple. Do it once more, hopefully get it in shot. Form a loop, pinch, fold it up on itself, pass the vertical material through the eye of the loop which you've just made, put that through, put your toggle through and pull it down, and that's your marlin spike hitch. So I'll show you what I've done there. Here we are, that's what I've just showed you. The toggle's through, pulled nice and tight, and we form this knot here, because what we're going to do with the knot is hang our hammock on the knot. It's really important, the next step when I show you, that you don't hang your hammock on the toggle, you hang it on the knot. So we've got one this side all the way through, and there's the first one. So the only step remaining now is to hang our hammock, and that's the fun bit. Like I say, if it was raining, you probably would want a tarp. You'd have all your bag, your gear underneath that, and that's the beauty of it. You can put it up really quickly and get a bit of a safe haven for your stuff to keep it dry, sheltered, away from the elements. So let's go and get the hammock. So here's our hammock, and I've got this nicely rolled away. I'll just unroll it. I'm trying to do this video without a proper tripod. We will spread it along there, and there we go, the hammock. Let's keep it as simple as we can. It's just a long stretch of material, that is it, which is strong and supportive. There's all different types you can get. You can spend lots of money on these things, but you don't have to, and that's the beauty of it. It's a really cheap way of getting into the outdoors and camping, like I said, in terrain where you'd normally not be able to pitch a tent. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and they can be really, really complex, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as I can. A lot of them have like another sleeve of material underneath which you can use to put a roll mat, just to insulate you from the cold air, or you can just get one of the cheap foam mats, just like another layer, like a sleeve or a pocket under the entire width of the hammock, in which you can fit a roll mat. Again, I'm not getting into the complexities of underquilts and things like that, but you can really go to town on these things and people enjoy that, and maybe one day I'll show you a bit more of a complex setup. But I'm just now going to show you how we're going to attach the hammock to the tree huggers. So stay with me on this. We've got the hammock to attach to the tree huggers. Now, mindful of the fact I'm keeping it simple, I have purchased another item with a funny name called whoopee slings. It's a great little name, and yeah, whoopee slings. They're made out of Dyneema, which is a really strong material, and they can hold my weight. If you're concerned about your weight, don't worry, because they're really, really strong. Massive breaking strains in these things. Again, I got mine from Henge Hammocks. I'm going to be leaving a link to Henge Hammocks in the description of this video, but it's not sponsored in any way. I've purchased all of this stuff myself. Now, a whoopee sling is simply a long length of Dyneema cord which passes through either end, the neck end and the foot end, and you can reverse them. There isn't a neck end and a foot end, there's two ends of your hammock. You thread that through, and all it does is enable you to adjust the height of your hammock. I'll show you what I mean by that, but it's got one loose running end of the whoopee sling, and you can pull that tight or loosen it off, and it will raise or lower either end of your hammock and allow you to adjust the lie. Again, keeping it simple. I'm not going into the perfect hammock angle. There's all kind of things you can do. You can have a ridge line on your hammock, a hammock ridge line as well as your tarp ridge line. I'm not going to bother with all that. All we're going to do is string a hammock up between two trees, and I'm going to show you how you can get yourself so you're sleeping relatively level. So let's have a look. So this is going to be the head end. Doesn't really matter, both the same. So as you can see, coming out from that is a whoopee sling, and this is the loop end there's a bit of a toggle there which stops it pulling back through. So we've got a closed loop on this end, and then we've got the running end which we can use to pull and tighten. All I'm going to do, really simple, is hook this end of the whoopee sling onto that knot. I always say it, hang it on the knot and not your toggle. All we're going to do is hook that onto the knot. Let's do it and I'll show you in a bit more detail. And there you go folks, exactly the same. That one is on there. That is it, that is all there is to it. We've now suspended our hammock, we are in suspension. If we go down here, you might be able to see, that is now suspended, fully suspended, that is it, there's nothing else to it. All we need to do is have a bit of a test sit. Now, that might suit some people, you might want it a bit lower. If you want it lower, all you do is pull the sliding end back up and that will lower this end of the hammock. If you want to raise it, you just pull on this end of the whoopee sling. Once you've made your adjustments on the whoopee sling, there's another funny hammock term called milking your barry. All you do, it gets its name from milking a cow. Pull it tight again, because this sleeve of Dyneema stops it from sliding by the power of friction. So you can bunch it up a little bit just to let the string slides looser and more taut. And when you've done it, milk your barry, pull it tight, and that's it. So you can raise the head higher or lower just by use of that brilliant little thing called a whoopee sling. Really useful. Now if you don't use whoopee slings, of course you don't have to, and you're just going to be tying your hammock to either end of the tree. But of course, once you've done that, in order to adjust it, it's a bit of a faff. You've got to undo it all, put it higher or lower up on the tree trunk, sit in your hammock, find out whether you're comfortable. At least if you've got these, it makes adjusting your hammock really easy. Just a complete doddle. You don't have to undo anything, pulling a string or loosening a string. You just play around with it until you're comfortable. I'm going to go and test this out, and it could be YouTube comedy gold if it collapses, but I don't think it's going to. Like I say, things to remember: make sure that your whoopee sling hangs on the knot on the buckle that you've made on that marlin spike hitch, and you're not going to have any bumps in the middle of the night if that's the case. So should we go and sit on it? Let's see what happens. Just slowly put our weight on, and that is it. First time, there was no editing, it's not collapsed. We are now fully suspended off the ground, and to anyone who's never slept in a hammock before, they're so comfortable. There's no pressure on your back. It is the ultimate in relaxation. There's obviously a bit of a gentle rocking motion, which is nice if you're trying to get to sleep, but I like them. I really love camping in hammocks. The other thing you can do is sit up, which is really good. You can, sit on here, you can cook on the floor below, all the while you're sheltered from the elements in your bit of a den that you've made with the tarp. So I particularly like using tarps, even in the summer. It just gives me that little bit of, extra security. And of course, once you're all set up, you can have all your gear to hand. You have your rucksack, your boots the other side, and they're always going to be dry. And like I say, ground, it's soaking wet. It's running downhill here in this area of woodland which I'm in. But if that's rocky or wet, or there's even little streams or bits of rocks everywhere, with a hammock, the ground isn't a factor. You can pitch it between 2 points, posts, rocks. Just bear in mind, if you're using rocks, that it's not going to abrade any of your lines and snap. Just choose smoother rocks if that's going to be the case. But in theory, you can pitch your hammock and set up your hammock anywhere between 2 solid points, and that's what I love about it. So yeah, I'm going to show you a few more little tips which I do. I'm going to get a quick coffee on, and we're going to wrap this short instructional video up. There's all sorts of complicated setups that you can do, and people claim that there's the best angle to have, and it gets really technical. Just make sure you're comfortable. That is my advice. Just for even even for your first time, don't do an overnighter, just come out, practice setting it up. It's great, isn't it? Really good. Hammock camping is absolutely spot on. You need to come and have a go. A lot of people don't like all the bits of loose lines and stuff which are coming down. And another concern, well, I better mention this, if it's raining, sometimes people worry that water can run down here and transfer to your head, and it can, you know, like the way water just beads and runs down lines. Well, I'm going to show you how we're going to solve that one with a really simple knot, just using this loose end on your whoopee sling. So all I've done to solve the dripping water problem is tied a simple overhand loop with the loose end of that. I've brought it up over the line, simple loop, formed a simple knot, and that way if there's any water running down, it's going to run down your line, hit that, and it's going to drip away instead of being transmitted to the hammock, and you're going to stay dry. So that's it, really simple. So that's it folks, all set up, and hopefully you found that pretty simple and straightforward. I've tried to pitch it at complete beginners to hammock camping. And don't forget, you don't need whoopee slings. I would recommend that you get tree huggers, but they're really cheap. It just makes attaching your hammock to the tree that much more simpler. But if you don't, you will obviously get some cordage included with your hammock, and you can just use any knot you want really to attach it to the tree. Most people just wrap it around a couple of times, and when it's got your body weight on it, the friction of your body weight pulling on the fabric will make sure that it doesn't slip. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. What I'm going to do is brew up a bit of a coffee and then deconstruct all that and get back to base. So it's quite cold, it's a couple of degrees above freezing, and a much needed coffee is in order. Let's fire up the stove. Well folks, I hope you enjoyed that instructional video, and I hope in some way that if there's anyone who watches the channel or this video and you may be thinking about getting out there and giving hammock camping a go, I hope this video is maybe giving you some tips and some useful advice. If you've got any questions, just ask me in the comments below. Like I said at the start of the video, I'd love to hear from you guys as to anyone who goes hammock camping, what you enjoy about it, and you know, if you could recommend any changes to my setup or something that you think I'm not doing quite right. I'd love to hear that in the comments below, and I will answer every single one. So give me a shout and let's talk about hammock camping. Anyone who wants any other particular advice, if you head over to Facebook, there's an MCM outdoor show closed group, and if you ask to join it, I will let you in. It's full of like-minded people who share a love of the great outdoors, real friendly bunch, and there's lots of advice for anyone who wants to get started and has got any questions about various topics. There'll always be someone in the group who can help you out. If you're on Instagram, come and follow me on there. There's an MCM Outdoor Show feed, and I put various pictures of the great outdoors and things I'm getting up to on the channel, and also Twitter at MCM Outdoor Show. I'm on there as well, put the occasional tweet out and updates as to what's to come on the channel. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a thumbs up, because it really does help the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, why not hit the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. I'm going to pack away now. I've had a great time in the great outdoors. Get yourself out there, get away from the screens, of course not if you're watching these videos, and go and enjoy the great outdoors yourself. I will see you on the next adventure.